Hi, Jamie with Jelly Switch. So in terms of trying to figure out who your customer base is for your co-working space, it can often seem a little bit overwhelming, or there's some assumptions we have when we first start our business about who is going to be using our space and who needs us. Well, I've done a lot of thinking over the past 6 years in the industry, and what I've seen is about 12 different types of co-working space members. And it's really interesting because there's a specific persona that goes with each of them. So one of the things you can do when you're either opening a space or again trying to figure out how to market to new members or new types of clients is to really think about who is that potential customer, because the way that you reach them or one of them might be different than another. And so let's go ahead and just go through those real quick and see if any of these resonate with you. So there's the remote from headquarters worker. And so, this is someone that works for maybe a large company or a smaller company, but either way, they are remote from their main team. And so they're going to be on a lot of video calls. They might need, a lot of access to private space. And they're really looking for community since they aren't in that normal work environment, but they may have been used to it or maybe are recently remote. There's the distributed company employee. So this might be someone that their entire team is distributed. Every single one of their colleagues is in a co-working space somewhere around the world. And so they may be much more adept at using tools like Slack and Zoom than someone who's at a much more traditional corporate environment where they're the only remote employee. There's the partially remote worker. So this might be someone that has to travel frequently. So you might see them for a couple days a week, and then the rest of the week they're out of the office. Maybe they work for a headquarters that's a couple hours away, or maybe they have to travel a lot. So they'll be in and out of your space, so they won't be there every single day. But when they are, they will probably really want to participate in community and get to know everybody. But they are going to have much more flexible needs in terms of when and how often they're in your space. There's the traditional digital nomad, and this one is maybe the van lifer, someone that's taken a year off to travel the world, and so they're bouncing from co-working space to co-working space. So they may only be with you for a few weeks or a few days, or maybe they'll stick around for an entire season. Especially in places like Tahoe here, we get a lot of seasonal visitors, so they'll be here for the entire winter, especially if the snow is good. There's next we've got the solopreneur and the freelancer. So they work with clients from all over. Some may be local, some may be far flung, but they're working for themselves, so they don't necessarily have any other coworkers. And so by being in a co-working space, they get to have a little bit of a flavor of that. Maybe they used to be and they've finally gone out on their own, and so they definitely need that professional support. They're startups, and startup teams, they may start out with just 2 or 3 founders, and then before you know it, they've closed a round of funding and they need space for 20. And so their needs may change very quickly. They also may unfortunately contract as startups' needs change and their runway changes. But you will often have all or a part of a startup team. And so they're going to need clusters of workspaces, a lot of private areas to have team meetings with large whiteboards. But they're always high energy and a lot of fun to have in co-working spaces. Next, you do have just small teams. So these may not be startups that are trying to close funding and scale to unicorn status, but they are small teams of maybe a consulting firm, engineering firm, and so you might have 2 or 3 colleagues together. So they might need like a nice little team suite or like a cluster of desks. But once again, they are going to be working together for the same company, even though it's not maybe a large company. You also have this growing trend of enterprise clients. And so a lot of these are going to be for the, Fortune 500 or major large corporations. And what their needs are often going to be is a lot of flexibility. They may only be in your space because they're traveling through. They may be remote employees, or it may even be that the corporation that they work for wants the membership themselves, and it might be any number of their employees that are going to come through your space, especially if you're in a major metro or somewhere where they've got a lot of sales employees that are traveling through. But we're definitely seeing an increase in enterprise clients in the co-working industry. Next is one of my favorite is the college student. And at Cowork Tahoe, we actually have a really great internship program. We like to have college students running around, working with our startup teams and with some of our member companies. And they bring great energy. A lot of times they need a really quiet, amazing space to study in if they don't have access to it at their local campus. And so it's one of those situations where I'll walk into the building and I'll see just like a huge whiteboard full of calculus because they were studying for a test because the library closed and they wanted to keep studying. And so being open to having students in your space can really bring some depth and diversity in a way that a lot of your other clients may not be able to contribute, which is great. We love the energy of our college students here. Another big client that I've seen a lot of, and is also kind of growing, are nonprofits. So, nonprofits often have very tight budgets, and they're trying to do a lot with a very little. And so co-working spaces are actually a really great alternate for them to still have professional office space, to have meetings, especially board meetings, without really putting a dent in those very tight budgets that are often very dependent upon philanthropy or grant cycles. We do see a heavy use of our conference rooms as a result of our nonprofit clients because, again, they do often have their board of directors meetings in our space. Some of our nonprofit clients at Cowork Tahoe are sponsored, some are not, and we always try to work with them to make sure that they are able to make the impact that they're going for in the most cost-efficient way possible. And then finally, we also see a lot of event hosts. So people that aren't normal members of our space, but they do like to use our event facilities as opposed to some of the other options. And this is a great way to really effectively use your event space or your larger conference rooms. It's a great revenue driver. And we find that people really enjoy having events at co-working spaces because they tend to be, again, really beautiful spaces. There's kind of a cachet of being in a very innovative and entrepreneurial environment. And so again, considering that as part of your customer base as well is really good. Okay, that's 12. If you've seen others, I'd love to hear about them, but I do think that's a good overview, and it's a good place to start to really think about, again, who are your customers? Who are you trying to reach? And then also, what specifically do they need? So if you want to go ahead and read more and see a really cool little infographic that was made by allwork.space, that's where this article originally appeared. I've also got it up on our blog at jellyswitch.com/blog.